Okay, this is EENG 460, and this is part 5, I think, of our decimal to octal converter. I think this is probably going to be the last one. I'm going to let you finish up the program. But bottom line is we did divide by 8, and what 8 returned to me was the quotient and the remainder. And the remainder, that's the guy that I need to write out to global memory, because I got to get all the remainders, and I got to print them out in reverse order. So I'm going to take that S3 guy, and I am going to put it into A0, okay, the value that I need to write out. And then I'm going to take S1. Do you remember what S1 was? That was the initial offset from the global pointer, which was just 0, but it could have been non-zero. So we're going to pass the value we want to write out to the global pointer and the relative position from the global pointer, the offset, into these two parameters here, the value and the offset. And then we're going to jump and link to store remainder to global memory. All right, let's find that guy. And notice it doesn't return anything. So if we come down to here, here is store remainder to global memory. This procedure stores the remainder out to a certain offset past the global pointer. The first input parameter is the value to store. The second one is the offset. It doesn't return any values. Okay, there's my no-ops that allow me to find this subroutine within Qt Spim. So the first thing I do is I take my input parameters and I cache them locally, because I could use those A's for other stuff. Okay, they're going to get overwritten when I use syscall. So I move the value to store to T0 and I move the offset to T1. Then I just print out a storing message. Okay, stores up in the data segment. And then I take the global pointer and I add the offset to it that I passed in A1. And I store that in T2. So now T2 is the global pointer plus the offset of the value. It's the memory location that contains the value. That's going to be where I want to store the value. Okay, what value am I going to store? Well, T0, which came through A0. So I use the store word on T0. Where do I put it? T2, where T2 is the global pointer plus the offset. And there you go. You just wrote it out to the global pointer plus an offset. And then down here, we need to print it out to our console. Okay, which value did we write? T0. That goes to A0. We set up V0 with 1, and we do syscall. And then I print out a carriage return. And I'm not using V0 and V1, so I just return 0. And then we return back. And there you go. There's your store remainder to global memory. Okay, let's go back to main here. And let's see, once we store it out there, then what happens? Okay, this is the offset. Well, notice we bumped up the offset by 4. Okay, and then we said, well, is S2 0? What's S2? S2 was the quotient, because we're taking in and we're dividing it by 8, and then we're dividing that by 8, and dividing that by 8, and dividing that by 8. Sooner or later, S2 is going to get divided down to 0. So what we do down here is we check, is it equal 0 not yet? If it's not, then we can still divide it down and get a quotient and a remainder. If it is equal to 0, then we're done. So then what I do is I take the offset that's been incremented by 4 each time. So the first time we wrote out it to 0 offset, then 4, then 8, then 12, then 16. And I pass that guy to display base 8 number. Okay? Let's go look at display base 8 number. Okay, display base 8 number. There it is right there. This procedure displays all the values stored out past the global pointer. It only takes one input parameter, offset from the global pointer of last value written plus 4, because we incremented it one more time. All right, let's see what this guy does. Well, there's my no-ops that kind of help me find the code. First thing I do is I take, let's go back up a little bit here. Okay, I take the input value that got passed and I cache it locally in T6. Then I do a displaying message, displays in the data segment, then I print out a carriage return. And now I've got the offset plus 4 cached into T6. Well, I decrement by 4 because we incremented by 4, so we're not really pointing to a valid one. We have to go back 4. And then I take that offset and I add it to the global pointer. And I store the result in T1. So now T1 is the value of the location that I want to read. So I load that contents of T1, or T1, that memory location into T0. Okay? And that's the value I want to print out. So I move T0 to A0, V0 is 1, I do a syscall, I print it out. And then what I do is I look at T6, because T6 is the offset. Is that equal to 0? No, go back up to here and decrement it again, and then get the next value and print it out, and keep going through here until it's equal to 0. Once it's equal to 0, you jump return. and you're done. And then the last procedure is just lab trailer, which just prints out a bunch of strings, normal termination, and carriage return. There you go. And that's it. Let's go back to main real quick. And there you go. Take a look at main. You basically do a lab header, you init your registers, you prompt for n, you pass n and 8 to divide by 8, you get the quotient remainder, you store out the remainder. You keep doing this whole loop right here until the value is no longer 0, and then you use that offset that you stored past the global pointer to print all those guys out in reverse order. And then you have a little trailer message that says goodbye. And that's it. All right, I think I'm done, and good luck with this program.